Okay, here's my testimony. Um, my name is Anthony Parma. Uh, I used to be married. I guess we'll start there. Um, I used to be married. I was married for 8.5 years. I was a Christian at the time. My wife and I were, we were virgins, and then we got married together. 3 months later, we got pregnant. So we're trying to do things God's way, the right way, all that stuff. 3.5 years in, her brother was murdered, and she kind of imploded. Never dealt with it, and I wasn't the perfect husband or anything, but I was a Christian, and she kind of turned against God. I was really sad. So when her brother was murdered, she kind of died, and then I was the constant, like God's the answer, and let's go to church and let's go to marriage counseling, and she just started to hate me for it, and it just soured our marriage. And then, so we had 3 kids at the time. Then we got pregnant again. I, did the typical believing without thinking about it, but maybe this will rejuvenate our marriage, have a kid to save the marriage. It was subconscious foolishness. And then she ends up cheating on me while she's like 4 months pregnant, maybe sooner, with somebody that we knew. So she's married to me, pregnant with our 4th kid, and engaged to this guy now after like a month of finding out. Then we did the DNA test, found out that it is my baby. It's a nightmare. It's a horrific nightmare. So our marriage ended. Lost the house. She took the house. She took the kids. None of it was legal. She had 4 different restraining orders on me, all that were dismissed because they were all frivolous. And I wasn't there for the birth of my daughter, which I was there for the birth of the other 3 children, my 2 sons and my daughter, and that was very sacred to me. It really hurt. It still hurts to this day. But so she put a restraining order the day before. I couldn't be there. It was awful. It was just a nightmare. I say it so nonchalantly now, but it was a nightmare to live through. Awful time. So for about 6 months, I tried to just live on the floor of my brother's room, where I was staying. It was all horrible. Your whole marriage is over, all that's destroyed. And I started believing things about God that were not true, which is where I went wrong, and which where all of us go wrong. I believed that he was okay with my wife's affair, her destruction of our marriage. He didn't stop it. She did get married, and she did not that matters or anything, but she got married, had more kids, and stuff. I'm like, God, how are you proving this? She cheated and blah blah blah. None of that matters. What I believe was that God didn't care about me and was done with my life, that he didn't have a plan for it. And I swallowed that deeply, and I started living that out. And so over the course of 2-3 years, I became a terrible person. I stopped going to church. I never gave up my faith, but I just thought that's who God was, and he was done with me. And I knew I just didn't have it in me to serve him and be. I'm not a fake person. Even then, I just knew, I just can't do this. I always called him Savior, but never Lord at that time, because he wasn't Lord of my life. I didn't let him into my life, and we were at odds. So I lived my own life. I pursued women, and I was an alcoholic, and I pursued that intimacy, which I never ever found, and then drugs got involved, and I was never a drug addict, but women had drugs, and I would try the drug, and it wouldn't do anything for me. Cocaine didn't do anything for me. Marijuana was, I could just get a bottle of alcohol, and this is how it was, and pills and whatever. Nothing really did much for me. I just wanted to have intimacy, which I, once again, never got, even though we were intimate, if you know what I mean. It never touched the need. It was just a chasing of a Band-Aid, and I was in this cycle for a while. So girls, drugs, girls, drugs. Finally, this one girl had a heavy narcotic, crack cocaine. And I was a husband, I was a father, I was a Christian, and I never had any of these struggles. But I had pushed God out of my life so far that I was not believing that he wanted to do anything for my life or heal me. And so why would I turn to him and then in my broken thinking. So I just pushed him out, and I kept going deeper into this mess, and it became a controlling substance in my life. It took me out. I tried to get to some sort of rehab. I asked my family for help, and it didn't take, and then it got worse and worse and worse and worse. So I got so desperate to the point I became a felon. I was locked up for armed robbery. That's how bad it was. It really took over. So for those who have any idea about addiction, they know, it's that bad, and you don't think that is until you come face to face with it, like, and how much power it is, how much control. Because I was a normal person. I had a family. I was never a drug addict. It was crazy. So within a period of 3 years, it just wiped out my life, and it was a nightmare. Then I became the nightmare, medicating from a nightmare, and so I ended up in jail. Long story short. Actually, before I went to jail, I had a house. I was doing well. I just bought a house. I was trying to fill it up with, stuff, and I had a nice truck in the garage, and everything was going good, except I was dead inside, and I was out of control. And I remember sitting on the couch, which was like the only thing in the house, and I was looking up, and it was dark, and I was, that's what I was doing. I was drinking. I was alone. This was my life. It was awful. I couldn't see my kids. When I did see them, I was this fake now. When they would come to me, I would be putting on the hat of dad, because that's who I actually was. But through that time, I just became this scumbag, wrapped up in my sin. And then when they would come, I would now be putting on the fake part of me, which was the good dad. I wasn't that man anymore. I was a scumbag. I was a womanizer. I was a drug addict. I was all that crap. Alcoholic. You're garbage without Jesus. And I don't care what anyone says. Without him, we're just decay. We die. He is the sunlight. And without him, it's darkness. We don't have what we need, just wither, I just withered bad. So I was sitting in this couch, and I said, God, I don't like you. I don't like what you allowed to my children and my marriage. You didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. But I said, I'm going to die. I need your help. And I heard him this fast. So it was like this. This conversation happened just like this. I said, God, I don't like you. I don't like what you did with my children, but I need you. I'm going to die. You're going to jail. Okay, that's how fast it was. And I was just like, him saying I'm going to jail was him saying I'm going to save your life. You don't deserve it. I'm giving you a way out. I felt his mercy in it, and I felt like a life raft. So lo and behold, I ended up in jail. That was my doing. But this is what I know now after being in jail. Was my mother got off the phone with me like a day before or whatever, and because I was drinking. She came over, I think it was, and I was just drinking and smoking, and she was just like, is this what you want to do? I'm like, yeah, Ma. Who cares? Never changes. I'd been there for 3 years of this nightmare with Amy, my ex. She knew it, and but I had shifted to blame to just God, and it was all disaster. And so she left, and she prayed to God, Lord, he don't see it. Do whatever it takes. Mom, she prayed that prayer, and God's like, yeah, I got you. So I was in jail. I woke up sober after a while, and then I felt the presence of the Lord. It was quarantine time. You get 10 days of quarantine, nothing but you, the walls, 3 state trays, no reading material, and a lot of thoughts. I'm telling you what, man, it was hard because it was loud, but God was with me. It was the end of an era. God was like, are you done? I love you, son. And I felt his presence. I felt like this, and this is my testimony. I felt like I had a hand, and it was cards, and I was like, I played my hand. I knew it was going to lose. I was playing against you, God. The pot on the table was my heart, and I was like, nope. And I just knew I had to play this hand. Like, it was real, It was like, I know it's going to fail, but played the hand. He obviously had the better hand. And I was in jail. I did not think I was getting out. I was facing a lot of time at the minimum. I think it was like 16 years minimum. And I shouldn't be standing here at all. But for this one thing, I said, God, you got my heart for what it is. I know I'm never getting out of here. I had no agenda. There was no prayer of, if you can get me out. Nah, it wasn't even on my mind. I was just like, I know you're right. I shouldn't have ran from you. I don't understand things, but you're right. I'm done running. I'm sorry it came to this. At that point, God, for 8 months, I was in jail 8 months. He just preserved my heart and exploded the word in me, and I just became obsessed. I was in a room with a guy who would make hooch. The addiction to alcohol had been broken. God had showed me. Like, I sat there at one point for hours going, that one time, see what, oh, I was drunk that time too, okay, that one time, oh yeah, like an hour and a half before that, me and my dad got smashed, like, right before okay, wait a minute, see those drugs? Oh yeah, I was drunk when I met her. I could trace everything down to alcohol, and God just allowed it, I had the time, and just allowed me to see, like, this is your Delilah, like, this is the linchpin that caused you death, and Delilah, for Samson, I don't know if you know, is like, she made him feel good until she killed him, until she took his eyes, and that's everybody. I think everybody's got their own Delilah, but that was mine, and I realized it, and it was broken. I had changed. There were drugs in jail, believe it or not, tons of drugs and alcohol, and it's like, he had delivered me. He had just delivered me from it. I've never looked back since. I am 3 years sober. That's just a byproduct of what Jesus says. It's not an identity. It's just who he makes you. You don't want that garbage anymore. He becomes. I'm a Jesus junkie, man. Like I need him. I need his voice. Without his voice, I wither. The sunlight. Get to this point in jail where there's Teen Challenge. It comes up, and the only thing I heard about Teen Challenge was that the recidivism rate was like 93%. People never go back there after 3 years. I'm like, that's it. And I prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, if there's a chance for me to get out and go back to drugs, don't let me out. I don't want to be that man anymore. I know how I got there, sort of, and I needed to find out exactly how I got there, and I did. I went through a year. It was a year-long program. I graduated in 11 months. Hand of God. But it was torture the whole time, because God was just digging inside me, like elbow deep, surgery, healing, brokenness, pain, and he like really reaffirmed my calling and everything. But the long story short is that a whirlwind had come into my life and stolen everything from me. And it shattered me, and I turned to the world rather than to Jesus. Then he grabbed a hold of me. I surrendered fully without an agenda, without any more vices. I don't go to anything but him now. Yeah, I'm human, and I fight this flesh like Paul did. The things I don't want to do, I still do sometimes. And those are not things that I accept in my life. Those are when I'm going like this. Sometimes I get snagged. I keep going. You know what I'm saying? That's the Christian walk. But it is a surrendered life because of what he's done. I was so close to death. I was so close to complete and total bondage that there was no hope for me. And I know there was no hope for me. I remember looking down one time in the middle of the Teen Challenge thing and just saying, I'm not the man that I was when I walked in here. And I said this. This is so powerful. I said, you did it. Like, you did it. What could not be done? I'm free. I'm delivered. It was impossible, and I know it was impossible. You might be as well thinking there's just no hope for me, and I can tell you there is, because, man, if you knew me, if you knew anything about the way I was, you would say, nope, not savable. Nope. And it was just definitive, But God just totally overshadowed me and just took over, and I said yes. I said yes, and I said there is nothing I'm holding back. That was that was like God's stipulation. I don't know. Like, I could say this. There was a man who came to Jesus, and he said, look, I've done all the 10 commandments my whole life. I'm pretty awesome. Everybody come here, take a look. Look how good I am. And Jesus knew what was going on. He was saying, look, just give me your stamp of approval so I can get to heaven, see how great I am. And Jesus said, look, this one thing right here that you love more than me? I want that. And he walked away really sad. And Jesus didn't chase him. We don't know what happened in there. We can argue all day, but like Jesus, we know that he kept going. And you know who followed him? His real disciples, the ones that really did give up everything, the ones that actually all, except for one, died on what they believed and followed him. They put their life on the line, the willingness was there, and they proved it, So those are the ones that Jesus took with him. And he says in his word that if you put your hand to the plow and you look back, you're not fit for the kingdom. That's Jesus' words. And I was that guy. Like, well, are you enough? I don't really know. I don't like my life. I was a mediocre Christian at best. And when the storms came, I was not strong enough. And so Now I'm strong enough because of Him. I'm not asking for more storms, Lord, but but I'm surrendered. So if the storms come, they come. He's enough. So I just want to encourage anybody that has someone in addiction, who understands how it's destroying somebody's life. There is hope. Jesus can crush that. I guarantee it. It was impossible, but it's nothing for him. This is the God who's parted the Red Sea, who created the universe. We kind of don't give him the credit, When he woke up in the storm, his disciples were like, "We're going to die. Don't you care that we're going to die?" And his response was one of indignation. He's like, "You have little faith." And I used to think that was harsh, but what he was saying is, don't you know who I am? How much do I got to do in your life to prove to you I'm awesome? See this storm? It could have crushed you. I could have let it crush you, but I said we were going to get to the other side. And I'm just saying, when you include Jesus into your life, into your storm, into your madness, you're including the solution, the only solution, and it's an overwhelming amount. We think we just live in our situation as if that's all we have, and that there's no way out. Yeah, with just you and with the tools that I have, with just me, without considering God Almighty, you got no hope. You're pathetic. You're just like me, worthless and powerless. But when you include Jesus and you say, I know you're enough. I know you're it. He rolls up his sleeves and is like, I could work with this, man. And he does. He shows up and people get saved. And now I'm here. If there's anybody out there, that's the whole point. He did it for me. There's no reason he can't do it for you. So I just want to bring glory to God. It has nothing to do with me, because I never had the power to say no to alcohol. I never had the power to overcome the betrayal of my ex, the loneliness in my heart, the devastating pain of losing your kids for a long time, losing your house as a man, like you lost everything. It was like your identity. It was just total devastation. Total devastation. I never had the power to overcome that, and you don't have the power to overcome anything either. Nor does the person who's caught up in addiction. But I'm just telling you, Jesus is enough, more than enough. He can do this, and I just want to say thank you for listening and trusting Him, man. Do not hold back. Don't waste any more time, man. I love my life now. It ain't perfect, but I'm close to God. I'm whole. I know who I am. I'm extremely confident in what He wants me to do, and He's doing it. It's ridiculous. God is just too good to me. Way, way better than I deserve. So I love you, and God bless.